Kevin Doverspike with the RE/MAX Premier Realty. I'm joined again with Mary Gwak here. We're going to talk about 1031 exchanges on your investment properties today. So let me introduce Mary Gwak from Lawyers Title. Give us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good morning, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me here. Looking forward to talking to you a little bit about 1031 exchanges.
Glad you can make it.
Mary Gwak, and I'm with Lawyers Title Company. I'm a sales representative, and I've been doing this for a little while, about 16 years. Feel very fortunate and grateful to be working with one of the best, Kevin Doverspike here.
Well, I appreciate that. And Mary is one of the first persons I remember when I started in real estate here at RE/MAX that I met, and title came up in one of our sales meetings, and I kind of glazed over a little bit and said, title, I'm here to sell real estate. Who cares about title? But I knew a little bit more than that about it. But she was one of the persons that I've leaned on and has been very helpful and instrumental in my success in real estate. And I always go to Mary Gwak for title issues. She's been in the business, like she said, for a long time, and one of the smartest.
Oh, thank you.
But I not only consider her a great team member, but a good friend.
Thank you, Kevin.
So anyway, we're here today to talk about 1031 property exchanges.
Yes.
And if you're unfamiliar with the 1031 exchanges, what that does is it gives you the ability to take your rental properties so that you can in turn turn them into another property down the road. And not pay taxes. Basically, what you're going to do, the shortest summary I can say is you're going to take a property that you own, a condo for $600,000, and you need to buy a property that's of equal or greater value than what you're selling it for. And so you're going to buy $1 million single level property that is a great rental income down by the beach, and that's what you're going to do is you're going to exchange it. But bottom line, you're not paying taxes, excuse me, on your earned increase in value on the property.
So capital gains, right?
Capital gains,
Yes.
which is important, and we don't want to do that when we don't have to. So Mary, I'm going to throw it at you a little bit.
Of course.
Talk to me a little bit about
Of
1031.
course. One of my favorite topics. Actually, aside from title insurance, one of my favorite things to share and talk about is probably tax savings.
Yep.
That
I'm full agreement on that.
You and I have had many talks about how so many of these are underutilized.
And we have a lot of clients that I work with that are investors.
Right.
You know, they have multiple rental properties, and 1031 exchanges are extremely important. And these are things that these mega billionaires use on an ongoing
Right.
basis also.
That's right.
You know, we're talking about $600,000 to $1 million. We're talking about a $50 million project to a $150 million project. They do this in huge volumes, and that's how they're not having to pay the taxes
Right.
on that.
Right. And, you know, I think a lot of times people get intimidated by the tax code 1031.
Well, everybody thinks of the IRS, man. He's coming around, he's at
Right.
the door, he's knocking on the door.
Right.
You know, he's calling you on the, well, the good news is the IRS doesn't call you on the phone. And we have too many scams on that IRS
goodness,
stuff.
Yes,
But they do send you mail, and
do open those.
and open those and respond to those. I've been privy to too many of them myself, but as you say, when you can legally do these things, you want to do them.
And it's not just created. I mean, I've talked to consumers and told them that, hey, this isn't just for Warren Buffett. Mary Gwak and Kevin Doverspike, or you can do a 1031 exchange.
And should.
Yes, absolutely. So the thing that I like about 1031 exchanges is, as an investor, big or small, it allows you the ability to keep your initial investment and the growth of it intact. So you are not stopping to pay taxes. If I made $100,000 in gains, I would in essence have to pay, whether it was 15 or 30% in my capital gains before
plus state.
Plus state. Yeah, well, yes.
You're only talking federal.
Yeah, the state of California wants their piece too. That's right. So they will, and when you go back to invest, you're left with whatever you have left after the taxes.
Right.
The 1031 exchange tax code allows for you to sell your property, keep that money that you're selling in safekeeping. There's some really stringent rules
Right.
around it. So that's why you need to work with a qualified real estate agent and the 1031 exchange company. But that money from the proceeds gets directly moved over to your new purchase.
Yeah, but to that point, the thing that you don't get to do in a 1031 exchange is touch the money.
Correct.
It goes from escrow to escrow.
Yes.
And that's where people have gotten themselves in trouble.
The moment you touch that money,
It's
You're
null and
done.
void. You've killed the 1031.
That's right.
We don't want to do that. So that's why it's important that you look at this up front. I've seen people that have tried to do this after the fact. We talked about this in our Prop 60 video.
yes.
Also is if you don't follow the rules, you can kill the deal and you don't get to undo it.
That's
I
right.
think that was a great example that you
yes.
used on that. So this is another one that's the same thing.
That's right. One of the things, as far as strategy, if you will, for a 1031, I'm seeing this more and more now. We are now in a culture where we have a big number of elderly clients, and they've worked very hard.
Mary, I'm starting to get a little bit of a complex. You keep talking about elderly.
Well,
And
it's the elderly people that have all the money.
But you keep looking at me.
You.
You keep looking at me.
Well,
I'm
it's
getting
only
a complex here. Am I looking? Do I need to start doing some Grecian or something? What's going on?
You are young, Kevin. You are young.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm seeing right now that's become very popular, and I think it's really a great idea. If I am a, medium-sized investor and I have an apartment building, I've got a 12-unit apartment building that I own. It's owned in my trust, but let's say I have 3 kids. If I have 3 kids, the likelihood after I pass on that all 3 of them are going to agree on what to do with that
Property.
that I've left
That
them.
12-unit complex.
Right.
That moneymaker.
Right. Everyone's going to have a
That
different
trust
opinion.
opportunity.
That's right. But everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. So
We can't get them to agree
no.
if there's 2 of them and it's
Well-
a primary residence, more or less an investment property. I deal with this on an ongoing basis, and everyone has a different opinion, believe it or not.
Yes, and there's no guarantee that all your children are going to be living in the same area, in the same life space, right?
Well,
I mean-
and that those children are even still talking to each other. That's not necessarily going to be part of it also. And we're seeing that on an ongoing basis.
Right. So what I see people utilizing the exchange for is when they kind of get to a point where, I'm really kind of getting tired of getting these phone calls from the property manager, and we had another one go vacant and we have to put new plumbing. So they get tired of all of this. They sell their $5 million apartment and they go and buy 3 properties.
Right.
They say, oh, well, Susie really likes that kind of, hippie lifestyle. She likes to just roam free. I'm going to go buy a loft somewhere in Santa Ana.
I know her.
Oh, do you? Well, she's a friend of mine. And then, Johnny over there is always going to be a surfer. So I'm going to go and buy a little bungalow for him in San Clemente. You kind of get my drift.
Correct.
So you are essentially able to continue to manage your assets in a meaningful way.
Correct.
And while you're still alive, make those decisions that you want to make sure your kids don't fight. Now,
But you're taking care of your kids.
you're taking care of your kids and you're also taking control of what you wanted.
Right.
Right?
And they're not going to have to fight it out after the
Nope.
fact.
And I tell you, Kevin, the likelihood of a family situation like that having all sorts of dismay later on is a lot slimmer. I mean, we see it all the time. Just like you see it, some of these family members.
I've had these conversations with clients
Oh.
already as to what's going on because
Yeah.
they're anticipating what their siblings are going to be doing versus what they want to do with it, and they don't agree.
Right,
They don't agree.
right.
And the parents are very aware of this. And I think in some cases, we're seeing this where it becomes a problem. I think the parents knew this, and they really were setting this whole battle up for these kids down the road, because it is ugly.
Right.
It is
And that's
ugly
exactly what I thought too.
because it's money.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about a $5 million thing, I see people talking about it for thousands of dollars that are, not millions, thousands. And I've seen it where we've had 6 or 7 siblings in a deal. It becomes
I've
a
seen it
problem.
amongst twins. I had a situation last year, the siblings were twins, and they
couldn't stand to look at each other. They do it every day in the mirror.
I mean, that was my first time that I had, because we go, just like you,
Right.
we see a lot of these situations arise.
Right.
And yeah, last year we had one where it was a set of twins, and they were the only children that the parents had. And it was over a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it can really be a complicated process. It could be a difficult thing. The major thing that they have to do in a 1031 exchange is this one has to happen after you sell the properties. And you have to identify the properties within 6 months, but you have up to...
So it's 45 days.
45 days,
to identify, and then
Identify.
6 months to complete.
Complete,
right?
But I thought you had a little bit longer to complete if it was in escrow. It
No.
has to be completed completely in 6
Yes.
months.
So the whole portion of it, you can't go beyond 180 days. The 45 days 180 days. The whole 45 day of it can be a little more fluid.
Right. Oh, okay. So this is why we're talking about this topic, is you can see Mary and I having a little bit of hesitancy in the time frames, and that's why you need to have this information up front prior to, so you don't get yourself into trouble.
Right.
And I'll have some additional information on my website and in the show notes on what we're doing here. But it's important that you think through this.
Yes.
But it's a great opportunity to avoid the taxes that you don't want to pay, because you're going to be depleting your assets that you don't need to, because these laws have been written for the big guys, but also the small people, individuals, that it's going to save you a tremendous amount of money. You don't want to do this.
Right.
If you you want to do the 1031, but you don't want to just write. And I have examples of some clients that have written checks for hundreds of thousands of dollars each time they've sold properties, and they were trying to get the wealth to finish living on. And they could have done this with the 1031 exchange, and it would have worked much better for them. And so we're here to try to help educate and help people. It's a difficult business being in real estate. Everyone thinks it's all fun and games, but we're dealing with lives. We're dealing with life and death. We're dealing with divorces. We're dealing with tragedies.
People having enough or not enough money to, comfortably live the rest of their lives.
And that's paycheck to paycheck. People are still living daily right now. So if you have the opportunity, you have these assets, you want to be able to keep them. And we're here to help. What else on this? Is there anything we're missing?
So let's touch a little more on what you were saying about, we can't kind of mess this up from the beginning and then try to go back to the IRS later. If you as a
We
consumer...
keep talking, going back to the IRS.
I like the IRS.
I don't want to open my mail.
So do you know that possibly you want to do a 1031 exchange?
Uh-huh.
Let's go back to what you were saying. Money has to go from escrow to escrow. So if I'm the seller of that apartment building,
right,
I can't go take that money and then 2 months later come back and say, hey, Kevin, can you get this deposited into your escrow? I'm doing a 1031. So somewhere while I'm in transaction to sell my apartment building,
right,
it's very important that I've discussed it with you, my agent, and then you would help me find a 1031 accommodator.
Right.
So the escrow company would then take my money from the sale of that apartment and give it to the accommodator.
Right.
The accommodator holds on to it. And when I say accommodator,
1031 company.
that's correct. They are 1031 qualified company. They would hold it, and then they would pass it on to the escrow company where
And it's a
purchasing.
nominal fee in comparison to
It
what you really
is.
think. The 1031s, folks out there, I'll be talking with a 1031 exchange company in the future here, and it really is economical
It is. I
for
mean,
what you're writing checks for versus paying them.
and do you know that it doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 property or a $50 million property, the cost is the same. It's roughly $800
Yeah.
per, it's like, what? Real briefly on accommodators, I know that you've got some great people that you work with, but just since we've got all our friends out here, I want to make sure that I point this out. Did you know that 1031 accommodators are not, there's no oversight for them? So there are and can be companies, you're driving down the freeway and you see a sign, we do 1031 exchanges. They're holding a large sum of money. So my rule of thumb is always talk to your real estate agent. Have them give you a referral.
Correct.
I've even seen escrow companies play accommodator, and they can by law.
Right.
But you're also talking about millions of dollars. It's very.
Yeah, it's critical. It's critical to talk to the right people. We talked about this before, but in a transaction, selling the property is not very difficult. Getting into escrow is what we start with, but getting it through escrow. And as you talk about, it's having the right escrow company also. It's having the right title company. It's having the right warranty company. It's having the right inspection done. All these things are part of your transaction. 1031's another one, but it's important. We'll be talking to Chris at Brickstone Escrows, one of my gals that I use that does a fantastic job and is a part of my team also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to have all the right people that are licensed, bonded, and doing the right things.
That's right. That's right.
Very good, Mary. Anything else that you can add?
I think as far as the 1031s, it'd be a great idea. I know you do for all your videos, but we could probably upload some really good fact sheets on there.
Absolutely.
And
in our show notes, we'll have that, and on our website, we'll add
That's-
some additional information. And we've done some of this advertising, some of this paperwork in our HOA ads and stuff also.
That's
So Mary, again, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
by today. I appreciate it, and looking forward to our next presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.